Okay, everybody, thanks again for joining us. White Plains City School District Reopening Committee. Today is Monday, the 9th of August. And by way of an update, we met last week. Met last week, so thanks for that. And then we were anticipating that we were going to be receiving updated guidance from the New York State Department of Health, as they had indicated. And then we found out late last week that the New York State Department of Health no longer saw a need to promulgate reopening guidelines throughout the state. Commissioner Zucker indicated via, I think, one or two sentences that the department would no longer be issuing guidelines and that he recommends school districts follow CDC guidance for reopening of their schools. So, for some that was a surprise. I think for you as being part of this process for the last 17, 18 months, while it may have been a little bit of a surprise, it probably wasn't all that shocking. The good news for us is that we are in a very strong position comparatively to where we were this time last year. I'm sure there are still some concerns lingering related to COVID-19, relating to the Delta variant. There are concerns regarding the health safety mitigation strategies that school districts are going to employ to keep children and employees safe. But certainly, if taken, sort of on a level playing field, thinking about where we are today versus where we were last year, we're in light years, in my opinion, light years in a better position. So we had discussed last week, even before finding out that there wasn't going to be any updated guidelines, that we were going to be following much of the health safety standards that we had in place last academic year, with the major departure in that we are now going to be able to have all of our children back in every day and reintroduce, or in some cases, continue with our extracurriculars, our athletics, after school activities, so on and so forth. Now, there are still likely going to be virtual events, particularly in some portions of the year. And at the school level, we'll be talking about those. And those are things like, for instance, potentially back to school nights, or potentially parent-teacher conferences, all those types of things. And again, we will iron those out and communicate those with our community as we move forward. But for the outset, I think the biggest question is, are we ready to reopen our schools for all of our children in September? And the answer, thankfully, is yes. So that's where we are right now. In terms of what our health safety strategies have been, or what they're going to be, we're in the process of coordinating with the school districts in the region as well, trying to the extent possible, have the similar or even same set of expectations in school districts in our region. Remember, we're looking regionally when we think about community spread. We're thinking about the entire area, not just our singular communities. So that's sort of where we are since where we left off last week. Before we do any questions, comments, or concerns, I do want to just go to Mr. Pepper. I think, Mr. Pepper, did you have anything that you needed to share this morning? Oh, I just saw in the chat, my audio is not working. Okay, never mind. Mr. Cameron.
Yes, Dr. Ricca.
Yeah, we're just we're thinking about, obviously we're thinking about athletics kicking off in just a couple of weeks, and I think we're in pretty good space right now, right?
We are, yes. Thanks. 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, we start all of our high school sports. Thankfully, most of them are outside in the fall, other than swimming, volleyball, and cheerleading is a little bit of inside and outside. So the plan is that the students who want to wear masks will wear masks. Students who do not want to wear masks outside are not required to wear masks outside. And yeah, so we're ready to go.
Good. Yeah, and one of the concerns that comes up a lot related to masking is the duration, the amount of time that children will be expected to be in their masks, and I think that our colleagues in the classrooms did a real tremendous job last year in allowing for mask breaks, regular mask breaks, and then taking the opportunity to let kids, take their masks off, and adults take mask breaks as needed. So we'll definitely be continuing along with that. No one should expect to be fully masked for 8 hours without respite. That definitely will not be happening. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, problems, anything from the committee? Hey, Cheryl, morning.
Good morning. So I just want to express the importance of consistency sort of among buildings and within the district. I know there was some mention last time about, reconvening, reopening committees that are building specific. And I know some of the principals talked about maybe cohorting or, lunch periods or whatever. And I just do want to express, I think that whatever is decided, for example, in one elementary school should, be sort of a district-wide kind of decision among all elementary schools so that parents don't feel that one environment may be safer or different than another. So I just want to encourage, consistency. And I guess another question that has come to board members or a concern has to do with remote. And I think there's obviously further discussion. I know you had mentioned that you had learned that there was an upstate, I think BOCES entity that offered a remote option. But I guess also then district-wide, whether there might be a possibility, district hybrid, which I think again, may require some, further discussion as we learn more.
Yeah, so I agree. Consistency, I think, is important in all the facilities. Absolutely. Happy to talk about remote and hybrid. As you know, Cheryl, every entity pretty much, whether it be medical or education, has been really laser-like focused on getting children back into school in person. And that was the goal, right? That's what we've been working toward all these many months. So, and I know you know that. So I also recognize that there are parents and guardians who had a great experience with remote learning and would be happy to continue along in a remote fashion. I get it. You talk to 10 people, you get 10 different sort of experiences.
Joe, can I just I'm going to add a little nuance to my comment, which is what we seem to be hearing more now is concern, for example, if a child has to be quarantined, for 10 days versus perhaps, full remote or full hybrid or, that kind of thing. But, so that's sort of the nuance that's here as well.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And look, we're, and as everybody who's watching at home knows this, there's no way that this committee can plan for every single possible scenario that arises, nor should we try to. I think one of the things that we've learned throughout the pandemic is that flexibility and being able to be nimble depending upon what the world brings you on any given day is probably the strongest position to be in. If a child were, to travel outside of New York State and let's say, come into contact and need to then be quarantined for a period of time, hopefully the child's not sick or not having, any symptoms. If that were the case and the child needed to be out for 10 days, we would work with the family to get that sick child, right, schoolwork. If an entire class needed to quarantine or be isolated, that would be an example, in my mind at least, where we would be able to shift to a fully remote environment for that class for that period of time. I think hybrid instruction is over. I want it to be over. And the reason I want it to be over is because that is the most ineffective out of the three and inconsistent out of the three methods of instruction. To be able to be back in person is the optimal. But if we had to pivot for health safety to remote, maintaining that capability, I think, is important too. I do see Mrs. Lyons has her hand up.
Hi there. So Cheryl, I agree with you. Consistency is really important. I also think those building-based conversations, particularly when it comes to this issue about what are we going to do if a child is quarantined, and how are we going to support them? So I think different buildings have different resources in terms of how many teaching assistants, how many teachers are available to work with those students. So I think having those conversations at the building level is really important, and then having a larger conversation, because this is something we need to plan ahead for and have a couple of systems in place that we can like find time to connect with students in person, but that it's not hybrid, right? Because that is challenging, and we do want to encourage students to be in the building. So I just want to encourage everyone who's listening here to maybe start thinking about having those conversations in the building, because it's going to come up, and I think it would be great to be proactive about it. So thank you.
Great points, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Kara. Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah, the other thing to be wary of too is that we do have to look how things are changing, how this pandemic is affecting us. And yes, while we do have to be flexible, we have the infrastructure to pivot anyway. We need to make sure our students are getting the education they need and in the environment that they need as well. So, I mean, I know, you know, we're going to have to constantly look at how things are changing before we're hard and fast. You know, I would believe, so we can't say unequivocally no, you know, like things that can't happen. We have to say, hey, maybe, you know, we do need to have X happen because now the environment has changed.
Yeah, great point. It's a day by day, even now, right? Even now with what we're seeing in some parts of the country.
It's concerning, absolutely.
There's a question in the chat from iPhone. Morning. Do we know how many of our children have been vaccinated, and can we gather that info? Also, do we think it would be wise to take a parent poll on hybrid? So we don't know how many of our children are vaccinated as of yet. That information, I'm sure, will be received along similar lines that we receive information regarding, you know, MMR vaccine and the other required vaccines. If and when we have those, or when we have those numbers, yeah, we can definitely share percentages of the number of children who've been vaccinated. In terms of a parent poll on hybrid, so, you know, I love polls. I think polls are important, but I can pretty much predict where this poll would end up. And it's almost, in like all things related to this, almost like a, you know, 50-50 split, right? Or, you know, 30-20, like, so you'll definitely have folks who hybrid worked for because of their, you know, their home situation or their work schedules. So they were able to manage that. But I think in terms of educational effectiveness, consistency, and you know, a sound experience for our kids, it's hybrid is the, as I had made mention, is the least consistent of the three modalities: in person, full remote, and hybrid. So I don't know how helpful that would be to us in terms of a poll, Lise.
Dr. Ricca?
Mm-hmm.
That was my cell phone.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know why I'm not, it doesn't show up, but in terms of the number of kids that are vaccinated, the reason I mentioned that today was my sister, who lives in Wilton, said they blast out information today on, you know, 80% of our kids 16 and above are vaccinated, and I don't know, 60% of 12. And I just think that, I don't know how they gathered that information. I'm not sure, because I know, you know, everyone got their kids vaccinated probably in different locations, but I think it's good to get a sense of, you know, how safe our kids really are, because masks are one mitigation, but they're not the best. But of course, if everybody's vaccinated, it's better. And I just think it's good information to have, especially in light of the fact that, you know, this, there's an uptick even in our area, you know,
Yep.
Things are happening, and it's good info to have. So,
Sure.
but
Yeah, I know, I appreciate that. And I don't know, I have no idea, you know, the circumstances around that particular district. What I can tell you though, from my perspective, would be this: the only way I would be comfortable sharing that type of information, those types of numbers, would be if they came from a secure and verifiable source, because self-reporting vaccination is not going to help us. So that's not like the kind of thing that I can, someone say, hey, Joe, are you vaccinated? I could just as easily say yeah or no. And that doesn't necessarily make it accurate. So in order to, provide factual information to our community, I would only want to do that if, for instance, we were provided those numbers from the New York State Department of Health or the Westchester County Department of Health, if that makes sense.
It does. I don't know how they gathered it. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, for folks who are interested and your child is 12 and up, you can seek out vaccination in a myriad of different ways. I anticipate we would probably be partnering again throughout the course of this academic year with our community partners to offer opportunities and certainly share information for people who believe that that's the right choice for their family. Other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
Joe, can I just say something?
Sure.
Just back to Mrs. Brady's comment earlier about consistency throughout the buildings in terms of cohorting and things like that. That guidance will be looking to Maggie to provide. So once we get clear information in terms of whether the recommendation is for cohorting or not mixing grades or taking temperatures upon entry, that we will be responding to the guidance that we get. Our building level committees are going to discuss specific logistics to our building that I don't think this group can speak to because they are so different from building to building, but that guidance is going to come from Maggie in terms of those decisions.
Right, and similar to providing additional information regarding masking for student athletes during contests or practices indoors, that'll also be in conjunction with health services and Nurse Maggie as well. All right, so not a very long meeting today. The good news again, not a long meeting because we know what to do. And we again are in a better and more secure position right now, certainly than we were last year. We will obviously be updating our community with where we are right now. And of course, any changes, communicate those immediately as well. We're going to put some more reopening committee meetings on your calendar. We'll go back to the original 9:30 time Wednesday and try and keep it as consistent as possible. If anything comes up, of course, feel free to reach out at any time. But again, thank you so much for taking the time out today at a different time as well. Have a great day, everybody.